Today's episode is sponsored by Sandals Resorts and BriteCo Insurance. What's up, Chillas? Today we have Veronica Silghigian in the house. She is the CEO and president of Pawfect for You, Inc., and we're talking about having your pet in your wedding and everything you need to know. There's going to be things that you think you know, but really you have no idea. Veronica, welcome to Bridechilla.
Thank you, Leah. I am so excited for today's episode. I hope it is chock full. I think it will be of lots of good tips that you probably, like you said, didn't think of beforehand.
Yeah, so just brief background on how you got started with Pawfect for You, Inc., and why you are so passionate about making sure our loved ones that are furry friends and the like can be included in our special day.
Awesome. So I started the company actually very pre-pandemic. In 2016, I had my own dog, and that was kind of when I would say single pet ownership was kind of on the rise. And then I also noticed a lot of other friends were having the same issue, that they wanted their pet in their wedding, and there just really wasn't a good way to do it. And pet sitters, even still, I do find they kind of shy away from it. At first, it's kind of like, oh, that sounds cool, but you need somebody for 4 hours, 5 hours? Oh, wait, you're not sure? And the more even I've done weddings, the more I've learned every time, and we're including different questions and different parts of the event into our timelines now. So it's one of those things where I love being in the niche. It's just such a fun job, but it's also very niche. And it's something that it's kind of hard to get good at, especially if you're another pet sitter just doing pet walks or dog walks or overnight sitting. And it's a different market too. It's a completely different market to sell to market to, but also it's just a whole different set of pet care needs that is very specialized when it comes down to it.
Yeah, there's a lot more details that I don't think people really realize. And I think that's with anything in wedding planning, right? You think, oh, choosing the venue is just very black and white, XYZ, but it's not. Like, there's other nuances you don't consider. And I think having pets in a wedding, I was starting to mention this to you before we got started. My friends got married back in May, and their dog was the ring bearer. And so my boyfriend's oldest daughter got to walk the dog down the aisle as like
Aww.
part of the ring bearer, and just kind of seeing from that perspective. And it was kind of, they didn't do the whole sitter route and that kind of thing, but just seeing how they did that, it kind of opened my eyes out, because that was the first wedding where the dog was incorporated more. Like, I had friends that had the dog show up for pictures beforehand and then kind of disappear, but not really incorporated in the whole day. But it's on the rise with millennial and Gen Z weddings. And why do you think that is? Like, why do you think now, as the generations go on, they're wanting to include their pets more?
So I would say one of the biggest contributors is actually the pandemic itself. A lot of people got dogs during the pandemic. The shelters were empty. It was a great time to own a pet and to train a pet and to have that companion. And now we're seeing those dogs included in these couples' weddings. So that was a tremendous contributor. And also it was not to say really a big trend before the pandemic, but pets have basically played a bigger part of our lives than they did decades ago. And they're basically family. So now we've got kids that have grown up with pets, and in their 20s and 30s, they got pets. And it's kind of like, that's my baby. That has to be there. So I think that's been one of the kind of biggest contributors to making them realize, like, oh no, we can have our dog part of our wedding.
Yeah. And, people have all different kinds of pets, right? I mean, dogs are going to be the primary focus today, and it's the most common now in weddings. But people have their cats, turtles. I've heard stories of horses, like they've gone out to the farms for photos, or they're having it at the actual farm. So how do you determine if your pet is going to be wedding friendly?
So first and foremost is no bite history, no aggression. I know that kind of seems like the obvious, but you'd be surprised how many times I do have at least a handful of times a year, I've got somebody that reaches out and says that. That's basically a no for us, and I would imagine so for many other companies. It's just a bad idea for your wedding day. It's a bad idea to have that part of your day, let alone the chance that it could happen. So definitely that's one thing to really consider. And you know your pet's behavior best. So consider their normal behaviors, but don't rely on that alone. And I tell every single couple that reaches out, there is no way to tell how a dog or any pet is going to react at a wedding. And I would say literally 50% of the time we show up and guests start to think like, oh, did you drug the dog? Like they're much calmer than they typically are. But it's really just that they're taking everything in. When you consider it from a pet's standpoint, we're basically taking them into a whole new environment that has a lot of different smells for them, grasses, florals, trees. Yes. Then add in your own florals. Then add in perfume, cologne, hairspray, hair gel. Multiply that by the number of guests you have. It's very overstimulating for those dogs. So some
Never
dogs
thought about that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, some dogs, they do fine in those environments. You know, you bring them to the dog park and they're the ones that, you know, socialize with every other dog there. Some dogs get overwhelmed or they're just kind of like, they're taking it in and they look like they're drugged up, but they're not. And then other dogs do get very like overstimulated, excited. And some dogs get a little nervous too. So we always go in with kind of the, what's your dog's normal behaviors, layer that in with the, like, we know that they could be a little bit different as we get closer. So consider, one, how they react when a stranger comes into your house. If they have like total FOMO, like stranger danger, don't go near me, this is bad, I'm going to bark until you actually leave, then one thing I will advise is be present when you have a sitter show up. Like, don't leave your dog in a crate in a hotel room and have a sitter go in. That's just going to layer in something bad a bad potential for the day.
It's traumatic, right?
Think about it this way. There's a chance your dog is not going to go with your sitter if you do it that way. And you don't want to get a call from your pet sitter that day that says, your dog's not coming out of the crate, your dog's trying to attack me. Bad idea.
Yeah.
But if you're there, if you know that your dog doesn't do well with strangers and you're there, the chances of success are 10 times higher. So if anytime couples reach out and they're like, oh, my dog's a little leery about strangers, can we do a meet and greet? It's like, we could do 100 meet and greets. I'm still going to advise that we do your timeline this way. And then also consider how they do around friends and family members. Are they the type that are just going to jump on everyone? In those cases, I say probably not a good idea to have them for the cocktail hour. Or we do give them a little bit of a sedative so that they enjoy the time and they're not trying to jump on people. And this is a little bit of not to say a myth, but a common kind of like a assumption I think that people make, where if you have somebody on the other end of a leash, they can completely control your dog. And that's not true either. We don't assign sitters where somebody that typically likes small dogs, we're not going to assign them to a 100-pound plus dog. And likewise, I actually have some sitters that don't even like to do weddings with small dogs. They prefer big dogs. So we assign them to the weddings that are for bigger dogs. So, but regardless of who we assign, it doesn't mean that automatically is like we can completely control your dog, especially if they're really trying to jump after, Aunt Susie that you haven't seen in 20 years type of thing. So
as someone that has 2 dogs, I can tell you for a fact you cannot control them. You can do only so much.
Exactly. So we prepare for all of that. We make sure that the couple is well prepared, the dog is well prepared, our sitter is well prepared. But factor these things in as you start to think through your timeline and think through what parts of the day do you really want your dog a part of.
There's so much to break down in that. And so based off of the overstimulation, right? They get excited. They want to jump on people. How do you go in preparing yourself for guests that have allergies or fear of pets?
Good question. It's actually a question we ask on our questionnaires now. So when a couple does tell us that there is somebody that has an allergy to or a fear of dogs, we specifically ask them to let us know who it is. We put it on the timeline, and then I put a note on our timeline that the sitter will ask that couple to point that person out, so that way we kind of stay away. Naturally, we do find people that have allergies and a fear of dogs. They tend to stay away as well. But I definitely tell couples, especially when we're doing our timeline coordination call, let your guests know. There might even be somebody that's there that doesn't realize it. And think about it this way, too. We all plan for like the perfect wedding day. 72 degrees, sunny, no humidity. Everything goes smoothly. But sometimes the weather makes us move inside. And if you've got a guest with allergies and we're in a small room, if it's a small wedding, now your guest is not going to have a great experience. And as much as it's your day, you also want people to enjoy the day. So I tell people, send a reminder out to everybody and just say, hey, FYI, my dog is coming. Just want to put it out there. If you are allergic, take something. I used to tell, and I've had planners that carry like Claritin or something else. Right. But everybody there's so many different things out there. Benadryls, Claritin.
Zyrtec is what I take. Yeah.
Yeah. My son takes Flonase. So there's a whole bunch of different things out there. So it's just impossible to stock for it. But if you tell people, you basically kind of empower them to act accordingly. And then same with your pet sitter. We ask that question also. Another question we do ask when we're doing our timeline call, does your dog have a tendency to jump on people? If the answer is yes, we leave this note on our timeline for our sitters. But basically, if anybody comes up to the sitter while they're with the dog, because sometimes, there's a little bit of downtime before the ceremony starts, after the ceremony ends. Sometimes we're included in the cocktail hour too. So if there is a tendency, our sitters will put up their hand just to say, hey, FYI, he has a tendency to jump. So just proceed at your own caution because you're in formal attire. So there's a lot of preparation, lots to unpack, but that's some of the tips that we typically go into the day and the questions that we ask in order to make the experience better for really everyone.
With weather, my first thought when you said rain was, wet dog and wet dog smell. You need to kind of refigure that all out because you don't want to have to deal with that or let someone else have to deal with that if you can help it.
Well, it's true. You're right. You don't want to have to deal with it. But guess what? We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it as part of our plan, and it's going to get written out.
Muddy on your white dress.
You don't want mud. You don't want mud. But also, think about it this way. Some dogs, they do have extra requirements when their hair is wet. And just going from the car in the parking lot inside a venue can make a poodle's hair go completely haywire, which would look crazy in your photos. So, there
no
are
different than us with curly hair.
Dogs are literally like children. They are like toddlers. Yeah. They do need a level of care that you typically do that you don't even realize you're doing that needs to be weaved into the wedding day. So, when it comes to wet hair, muddy paws, and even for, I call them our low riders, but, our dachshunds or corgis, where their bellies are so low to the ground, it's basically like that undercarriage really needs a wipe down when we come in. But knowing that going into the day and preparing for it. So when we prepare our timelines too, we do actually detail out a rain plan. Sometimes we've had a half a page long rain plan because it's a poodle and they have special paw washes and hair dryers along with a special comb. So it really does kind of get a little bit more detailed, but it's more so on the supply side. So one of the things that we also give a lot of our couples when we do our timelines is a checklist of things that they'll supply because they have all the things for the dogs. And it would be impossible for us to stock. We're not Petco.
And the dog is going to be familiar with the tools already being used too. Like the smell of whatever shampoos
the smell of their
combs.
Brush.
Yeah.
Yep. The smell of their normal pet wipes. Even like a lot of the smaller breeds, they get the eye gunk.
Yes.
So we'll ask, is a tissue okay to use? Is a cotton towel okay to use? Or do you have special eye wipes? We make sure that they get a checklist of the items that we talk about. And they pack that all and they give it to us the wedding day. So it is a lot around the preparation, but a really good plan does help prepare you for all of these different scenarios. Rain, heat's another big one that we have to consider.
Yeah, I was going to say the extremes, heat and cold.
Yep. That's another one that we have to consider, especially with some of the more bulldog breeds, because they typically don't do so well in the heat. But a lot of owners, everybody manages their dog through these weathers. So it's, how do you typically do that? Is there a cooling mat that you use? A lot of times we've gone out with an extra Ziploc bag and we just ask for ice at the venue. And then we put that on the dog's belly just to give them a little bit of a cool down if we're still outside taking photos. Extra water, staying in shady spots, testing the cement. That's another thing that we try to do. I put on the timelines before. Yep.
Is there like paw protectors that you recommend if they have to go on hot cement to get to and from a place?
I know some people do use them. I personally don't. I've tried them on my dogs, and a lot of people have said the same thing. Every time you put them on, it's kind of like the dog walks a little funny, and it's probably more of a nuance than it is, a good thing. To be honest, if somebody did tell me that during one of our timeline calls and they said that it works great, they use it all the time, their dog is perfectly fine with it, then great. Include them in the packing list. But for the most part, I would say we do better with just testing the cement. And it's more so the blacktop than it is the cement itself.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the more of the precautions that we take.
And then what if you want to put them in a costume? Like you see sometimes the dogs in the black tuxedo tea type thing, right? Or flower crown on the neck, or, what's your recommendation when it comes to dressing them up?
The first one is try it on beforehand. And I know that's obviously not always reasonable when you have like a real floral collar made by the florist. So in those cases, I typically tell couples, just give your florist the measurements and then make sure they're not basically doing anything that's like an unsafe pet flower. There's a lot of lists out there that you can download. And if you're just worried about that, a lot of florists are already, I would say, more attuned to that than they used to be. But just as a double check, it can help.
That's a great tip, because I did not even consider that there are flowers that are not friendly for different animals, but in dogs in specific.
Yep, exactly. So, definitely talk to your florist if you want something that's made from a real flower, but just make sure they know the size of the dog. We did a wedding actually a few months ago where I don't know if the florist just overestimated or they didn't know exactly the size of the dog, but the floral collar basically went all the way down to the ground. It was like a medium-sized dog, so it looked a little weird, and there was no way to adjust it either. But for the most part, try it all on beforehand. If your dog does have a tendency to pull and normally wears a harness or normally wears a gentle leader, even a prong collar, e-collars, they are perfectly fine to use on the day. If your dog wears an e-collar, I recommend keeping that on for the day and then get a bandana that goes on top of it so you just hide that box where they have the signal that comes through. Prong collars, they look perfectly fine so long as you get like a leash. A prong collar with like a weird blue frayed leash is going to look a little weird, but a new leash would look just fine.
Yeah, just get like a solid black, something that kind of blends.
Exactly, something that matches your colors. If your dog normally wears a gentle leader, get a new one for the wedding day, but keep those things on. Just get new ones so they look better in the photos. Great
tip. So we had Dustin from BriteCo Insurance on the show, and he brought up a story where I think they were just doing a venue tour. I don't think they even booked the venue yet, if my memory serves me. But they had brought their dog, and the dog was going to be in the wedding, and the dog peed on a very expensive rug. And so, and you had mentioned possibly biting people earlier, and this I think all kind of ties in. So what should we be considering when making sure we're insured? Because a pet is still a wild animal as much as we love them.
From a business perspective, I advise, most venues don't allow you on the property without having general liability. So having a general liability policy with the ability to get a name certificate easily is kind of what I advise for couples to at least be looking at when they're considering a pet sitter. From the couple standpoint, I mean, that's a tough one. That's where wedding insurance probably comes into play, but it's really not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
I will say when it comes to things like if your dog has a tendency to pee inside or any types of accidents like that, then again, really think through any type of situation that could go wrong and prepare for it. So I do advise a lot of couples actually to purchase a belly band or a female diaper if you do have any concerns whatsoever that your dog is going to pee inside. And it happens. It has happened. Yeah. And the belly bands, they're male diapers that basically, they look like a cummerbund when they're on. Like they're don't think about female diapers like the Depends commercials either.
That's what I was picturing.
No, they actually
Depends.
Yes, but if you search for dog belly bands on Amazon, a lot of them are cloth. They're reusable, and you can get a black one or get one that's a color that, like my dog is going to be 13 next week, so he's in a belly band right now, and he's got a navy blue one on for representing Penn State. But again, they're cloth. Like he has an accident, I throw it in the washer, and it comes out just fine and put it back on. But it looks like a cummerbund. So you can get a color that matches if you get like a little tuxedo collar, or if you get anything to match basically the day, it will look fine. It will look good. And then same with the female diapers. They look like some of them on Amazon, if you search for female dog diapers, female cloth dog diapers, they look like the fancy pants that you would typically put over a little girl's diaper. They have the little ruffles. So they're actually made to look nice and to be reusable. So they work great if your dog has an accident, or if you have any concerns whatsoever that your dog would have an accident at the venue. Don't chance it. These things are not expensive. A pack of 3, I think for my dog was $7.99. Totally worth it, as opposed to the very expensive rug. Or if you're getting married at like a botanical garden, anything like that. Those places also, usually they have rules and restrictions that we can't go in certain areas, but those are places also that they do have the concerns that something bad could happen to one of their very expensive flowers.
Well, yeah, because you might think, well, my dog doesn't normally have accidents. It's not usually a problem. But on a day like that, where there's so much, like you mentioned before, all the overstimulation, they might get nervous. And, I mean, just like humans, sometimes you get so nervous you pee a little. Right? The dog might do that.
Especially the humans that have had babies, too. That's another concern.
If you sneeze and pee.
Yeah, it's a big concern. And it's a big concern for dogs, too, that if you have a rescue dog that has been a mom, then and you know that's part of their history, then you probably know there's a little bit of excited tinkle that comes out every now and again. So in that case, you might have some excited tinkle on your wedding day. Just make sure there's a diaper on.
I like the diaper tip. That's so great.
Yeah.
So with sitters, you can obviously look into getting a sitter, which we'll go into how to vet who the best one to get would be. But, you know, some people might think, oh, I'll just DIY and have a family member or a friend do it, like my friend's wedding, right? When Lily stepped up and was the dog ring, bearer. But what are the pros and cons of looking at both, and how do you budget accordingly if you do decide to go for a sitter?
Right. And, budget is a tough one for a lot of these specialized services, us included. I will tell people all the time, we're not the cheapest ones out there. We're not the most expensive, but we generally come in, I would say probably 1 to 5% of your budget, depending on how long you want a sitter for. Sometimes when couples reach out, they don't realize, oh, I want my dog there the whole day. I want them there from the point that I put my dress on to the point like the cocktail hour starts. And then it's like, okay, I send them a proposal, it's $1,000, and they come back like, oh my God, sticker shock. So, I mean, be realistic.
It's a lot of work, though. You're worth every penny.
There's a lot of, I know there's the common myth around the wedding tax, but realize even like your example where the girl walked the dog down the aisle, there's a lot of coordination that has to go into play. That person has to know they're doing that. At lineup, we have to hand the leash off. Sometimes we're even handing off a couple of treats to the person who's escorting the dog down the aisle. And then after the dog walks down, what happens next? we usually ask for a seat to be reserved at the end of one of your front rows, either the bride side, groom side, left side, right side, whichever. We have a reserved for pet sitter sign that our sitters print out. They carry some of them carry tape, some of them just carry a little clip that goes on there. But these are all things that we have to prepare in going into that day. And even in the example that you provided, that person has to know they're going down the aisle with the dog. There's coordination that goes into it. So when it comes to using a family friend versus a pet sitter, consider that. How good is the person at taking direction? How good is the person at like really sitting down and making sure that they know exactly where to be, what to do, how to care for your dog in a capacity like a wedding? Because what comes into that is, are they going to be wearing something different? Are they helping out with photos? What treats and toys will get the dog's attention for photos? What time should we be there for photos? And then you get into some of the nuances around timing. And then what happens if we're off schedule a little bit? So all those things have to factor into whether or not to use a friend or to use a pet sitter. But also, a lot of people run into when they're using a friend for the day, that friend is probably in formal attire. So you have to consider, like, are they going to be comfortable bending down to pick up poop in a dress and heels? And a lot of times, I would say at least probably 80 to 90% of the listeners are going to have their dog leave the venue at some point, or at least leave the reception area. Because that's a lot of times where venues will say, well, we can't have the pet present when we're serving dinner. So in those cases, you have to ask that person to leave to bring the dog back somewhere. A hotel, your home, a daycare, another pet sitter. Sometimes if everything is on the same venue, they're going back to their hotel room. But then it's not just a matter of you bring the dog back to the hotel room and shut the door. There's usually 10 to 15 minutes at least to get the dog undressed, make sure they're nice and settled in, feed dinner, fill up the water bowls, get them into the crate if there's a crate, all of those things that you typically do for any time that you're leaving your house. That person is doing it either for the first time or not, but not as frequently as you do it. So it's a little bit slower. So you have to factor in that they're missing a portion of the day. It's not just a matter of go, throw the dog in a room, close the door, and bye.
Yeah, that's a great point. The logistics of it, the focus of their time, like they're not going to get to be as fully present as all your other guests, right? They're not going to get to enjoy all the things, especially if they have to leave. So I'm glad you brought that up, because if that family member or friend that you're considering is really important to you and you want them to share in the day, you might want to reconsider them or anyone else that's close to you taking that time. If it's an acquaintance that you want them to come back and have drinks and have fun, but like you don't care if they're around and they don't care, like that's something maybe to consider, like a neighbor or a coworker or something like that. But this is where maybe the sitter is worth the money. Exactly.
And the other item too, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, ask early. Like, don't wait until the month of your wedding. 'Cause I find so many couples get like so caught up with, I'll figure it out. It's such a stress. Like, oh my gosh, my dog is going to be there. There's no question about it. My dog is going to be there. But then it's, okay, maybe the bridesmaid, no, maybe the groomsman, no, okay, what do I do? And then they're frantically sending out emails and calling pet sitters the week of their wedding, because then it's like, oh crap. But this is one of those things where face it head on, get into it, make your calls early, reach out, do your research, get on the Facebook groups, ask around. I mean, we're more than happy to field any calls. If it's in an area we service, I'm happy to provide advice in budget too. If it's, we don't have that $1,000. Okay, well then let's talk like a 3-hour package as opposed to a 8-hour package.
And you need time to have meet and greets with the dog, because you can't just meet it the day before, just like any other vendor.
Yes and no. So surprisingly, we don't require meet and greets. And it's really, from a business standpoint, a meet and greet the purpose of it is to assess a dog from a business standpoint, from a behavioral standpoint. We're asking you so many questions as part of our process in order to develop that final timeline. We get a good picture of the dog to begin with. So there's really not a need for us to do a behavioral assessment because we're pulling so much information out. And like I said earlier, there is no way to know 100% how a dog is going to do for the day. That's where a professional pet sitter comes into play, because those pet sitters are attuned to how pets act, what's normal, what's not, if they need some rest, if they need a drink of water, if they need to go poop, if they need to go pee, and then layer in all the little idiosyncrasies that come with your dog that that you've told us, that we put on our timeline. We don't have a need for it. But there is still a lot of planning that goes into it. So, and we're dependent on another person's schedule for the day. So that's why I say reach out earlier so that we can work with you and get to a point of having that final timeline. Plus, we also have to coordinate with the other vendors. When it comes to photography, planning, the venue, we sent a timeline actually out, I think it was about April, May, to a venue in Pennsylvania. And the venue came back and they're like, we don't allow dogs inside. So I hope it doesn't rain on Saturday.
Yeah, that's something, I'm glad you just said that, because that's actually my next point is this is something you need to consider early on when going through your planning process, because you need to ask the venues that you're looking at. You cannot sign that contract and then come back and be like, oh, my dog's going to be there. They're going to be like you said, no, not allowed in the premise whatsoever or not allowed indoors. And you need to give a heads up to all your other vendors, because maybe those vendors have a severe allergy or a fear or don't want to work with them. It's kind of like the Hollywood thing, right? It's hard to work with pets and kids. Like, some vendors might have that, I don't really want to. So you really need to have that communication and really decide early on if this is something you really want to move forward with.
Yes. So here's another little tidbit for the listeners. It's one of those things when you're looking at venues, you're just so excited. It's one of the first things in your process. You don't always think to say, I want my dog there. Or you might be part of a 2-year engagement where you booked your venue 2 years ago and a year into it, you got a dog, and then you just fell madly in love with your dog, and now your dog has to be there. But yes, ask the venue. The venue is definitely the first place that you want to start in terms of what are your rules and restrictions. Because many of them now will, I hope, after the puppy pandemic, and there's just so many more couples that do want their dogs part of their day. I find a lot of them have gone from no pets allowed whatsoever to, okay, the pet can be on site if A, B, C, D, E, F, G, type of thing is satisfied. And I do encourage venues to have rules. Don't make it so extreme that it's difficult for a person to do it. I've seen venues that have put in weight restrictions and breed restrictions for no other fact than they just had a bad experience. So I would say don't let that craft your policy, but craft the policy around what's reasonable. So things like your dog can be there for pictures in the ceremony. That's great. I have encouraged, I know this is probably not this isn't something I ever put in writing, but if your venue comes back and says, no, we don't allow dogs, but you're absolutely heart set on it and it's breaking your heart not to have your dog there, I still tell couples, still reach back out and just double check with them, but give them the caveat of, hey, I'm considering working with a specialized pet care company that just does weddings or that has gone to, X amount of weddings in the region or anything. Because a lot of pet care providers do also do regular pet care, but then have a pet sitting arm. So if they have any experience in weddings, that's usually a plus because they kind of know how the date goes. They know how the flow goes and they know really what the venues are worried about, and can kind of help the couple prepare in addition to having a pet sitter on site. Generally, that does kind of help venues feel a little bit more comfortable to work with a couple that puts it out there. Hey, I'm working with a company that does just weddings and dogs. They're going to prepare us. We've obviously never done this before, but we want to do it in a manner that is safe and practical for everyone, including the dogs, including yourselves. So what rules and restrictions can we put into place that we would follow? Having a dog on leash at all times. Poop has to be picked up at all times. I've seen venues come back with that rule and restriction. That's great. But where do we put it?
Where do you go? Yeah. What's the nearest garbage can?
Yeah. Is there a dumpster out back? Great.
And they may not want it in the nearest garbage can because that smell.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So I do tell couples sometimes, especially even the venues that say the dog can't go inside. Well, what happens if it rains? And look, it's either 2 or 3 years ago, we had 7 weekends straight in the Northeast of rain, September and October. So
2 of the hottest months for weddings here in the Midwest, in East.
In the Northeast, it was literally every weekend for 7 weekends straight in the Northeast. And that's where we primarily operate. So we're going to talk about rain plan. And if you say your venue doesn't allow dogs inside, okay, well, what's the plan B? I'd still recommend you reach out to the venue, tell them you're working with us, tell them that you've hired us. I am happy to make any contractual changes if that's needed. Our contract defaults to the venue's rules. But if there's anything else that we could do to make this a more pleasurable experience for everybody involved, we'll do it. I find a lot of times the venues are a little bit more like amenable to working with that, just because it's not like you're using your neighbor's 14-year-old son that has never done this before. So there's
you might want to have them listen to this episode.
Yes.
Get some tips.
Yes. So that is my kind of another one of my big tips too. Like, ask your venue, and if your venue gives you some pushback, tell them, hey, I want to do this the right way. Let me know how I can do that. Do I need to get a specialized pet sitter? Do we need to have rules around what to do? What can I do to make this better? Because I absolutely love my dog. Pull on the heartstrings when you reach out. But, those are scenarios that do happen a lot.
Imagine a wedding day where each detail is already taken care of, allowing you to savor every moment. At Sandals, your dream wedding can finally become a reality. From intimate elopements to grand celebrations, Sandals offers customizable packages for every size and style. Plus, everything is included: your accommodations, gourmet dining, premium drinks, and all your wedding services. You get a dedicated wedding planner and an on-site team to manage everything from ceremony to reception. And here's a really sweet deal. Stay 7 nights or longer in a club or butler-level room, and you'll receive their Sweetheart Wedding Package, completely on them. That means your ceremony, decor, and even a delicious 2-tier wedding cake. For those of you who really want to be sure, you can even test drive your wedding experience before you book it. Stop dreaming and start planning. Head over to sandals.com today or call 1-877-SANDALS to create your unforgettable wedding experience. So destination weddings are absolutely huge now. A lot of people are doing them or considering them. And shout out to our sponsor, Sandals. If a couple is deciding to do an all-inclusive resort like Sandals, for example, or going off to Greece or Italy, which has become more common now, what are steps that they need to consider if they want to bring their pet along with them?
So first thing is, if it's international, then obviously we have to check the laws around getting your pet into that country. Sometimes it's just not feasible. So if it's a no, then, you kind of have to deal with it that way. But you can always, do a nod to your pet in other ways. Include them in your table signs. Your cocktail signs are a very common thing to do now. Yeah. Having cutouts of your dog on the dance floor, that's been super cute.
Our friend did that because their cat couldn't be there. They had the dog as the ring bearer, but their cat Zenga was not going to be an option. Zenga's very special cat. And a cat. But yeah. So they did the whole fat head on the stick and brought him out in the middle of the reception once things were getting hyped up as an extra thing, It's fun. Everyone got into it.
Yeah. So there are tons of ways that you can do it. And social media is great in terms of giving you a lot of different ideas. Now, if you're going back to your hometown, let's say, for example, or we have a lot of times, and again, why we don't require meet and greets, because you might be located in California going back to your college hometown or your college town in Virginia. So it's just not feasible to do a meet and greet at that point. In those cases, one, obviously, how well does your pet travel? If your pet's, 13 like my dog, he's still okay on planes, but I don't know that I would put him in a car for 20-something hours. And it, just depends. Some older dogs just don't do well traveling.
And puppies that aren't fully trained yet.
That's another consideration too. So, but if your dog travels well and you've got everything kind of lined up travel-wise, then when you get to your venue and your location, finding a pet sitter in the area that can care for your dog on your day, I think is probably the best option. But the only nuance that comes into play when you're traveling to a location is your hotel pet friendly? Because a lot of times then we're going back to the hotel, or we're picking up and dropping off at the hotel. So just kind of checking that ahead of time when, again, I mean, this all goes kind of into the major theme of plan ahead, really checking that out. And if at the end of the day, the hotel is just not pet friendly, look for an Airbnb nearby.
Is there any other emergency prep that we should be aware of when it comes to our pets on the day of the wedding?
I would say one thing to really consider too is if your dog has any types of like a stress reaction. If you've noticed any type of anxiety, nervousness, my dog, for example, he hates the rain in the summer. Like, I mean, he's in a puddle of drool under my bed every single time we have rain. So about 5 years ago, I've tried everything. Thunder jacket, CBD treats, Benadryl. It just wasn't working. And finally, I asked the doctor for kind of like an anti-anxiety sedative. Mm-hmm. And he has done phenomenal on it. Trazodone is the name of the medication. And I'd say at least 10, probably higher this year. I've seen owners give their dogs Trazodone the day of the wedding. It just makes for a much easier day. Yeah, it's one of those things, if your dog does have that tendency to begin with, like any type of anxiety, anything that might just set them off. We've had couples that it's like a car sound could set a dog off. Well, there's no way to avoid that on the wedding day. So
fireworks.
In that case,
if you have fireworks at your wedding and you want your pet at the very end of the night, like fireworks are awful for dogs.
Awful. Yep. Some dogs do fine. We've done sparklers, fireworks send-offs with golden retrievers, and they are fine.
Yeah, our one dog that's the mutt does okay, but the chocolate lab in the bathroom hiding underneath the rugs, like finds towels and like hides herself. Yep. Yeah. So in those cases, talk to the vet. Obviously, don't introduce something on the wedding day, but definitely, talk to your vet ahead of time about possibly introducing something just to make it easier and better for them for the day. You can't imagine celebrating your day without them, but you just don't want them to be stressed. So I'd say that's aside from weather, just consider kind of their anxiety levels and their stress levels. If they have any tendency in any type of scenario to get stressed and you're worried about it, then have that conversation and give the medication a try. I'm glad you made that comment, though, about don't try it the day of the wedding, because it's just like with us, right? You should not try a hair or skin treatment the day of, or makeup that you've never used the day of, because you could have a reaction, right? And that is a great point. Like with your pets, you should not try that anti-anxiety med or CBD or even the outfits, right? Like we talked about earlier. Like, test those things out. The dog's outfit is the same as your wedding day shoes. You got to test that out ahead of time. Exactly. So we're going to have to be wrapping up here, but is there any other major advice that you think couples should know when they're deciding or are already including their pet in their wedding day?
I think we really hit on the big ones. Plan ahead. Don't be afraid of it. Like, just hit this head on. Having your day there, having your dog part of your day or your pet part of your day, it can be a wonderful thing, and it can really give you memories of a lifetime. I even got an email from a former bride last year that the pet had passed away, but she was so glad that she had those memories from the wedding day. So it really is, it's a wonderful thing, but make sure you plan ahead. That's kind of what I would say is the overarching theme of everything in terms of the number one piece of advice I could give.
I love that. Thank you, Veronica. I think that's amazing advice for just weddings in general, right? Don't be afraid to hit it head on and plan accordingly.
Yes.
So I want to know, what's in your fuck it bucket? You personally, your opinion, what would you chuck that you don't think people really need on the wedding day?
So I say this, and I have literally done this dozens of times, but doggy ring bearers and off leash. So the off leash, obviously, off leash is fine if you're in like an enclosed space, but if you're outside, there are too many different circumstances that the wedding day itself poses that things can go wrong. So don't try to go down that route. Even if your dog is off-leash trained, they're off-leash trained to you and they're off-leash trained under way different circumstances.
Yeah.
Don't try it. We've done it. If a couple is really insistent on it, I give them the disclaimer. We have a separate waiver for them to sign that basically says we're not liable if your dog dies. But I don't love that.
No, but you have to protect yourself. Like, that dog might go after that squirrel and get hit by a car, and that's not your fault.
That's exactly it. We have no control over the dog, and neither do you. And then the ring bearer part, again, I love doing it when it works, but it's also one of those things that it's dependent on your dog being well behaved through the entire ceremony or having some expert coordination, because even if our pet sitter is off to the side, somebody has to come get them when it's time to present the rings. So, and it can be a little bit awkward. Yeah. So that's why I mean, it's a nice thing and I'm always willing to plan for it, but it's going to be dependent on other people and other companies also, like if they have a planner, for example. But sometimes those planners do like only day of coordination or only, certain things. I can't 100% rely on that planner being there, being present to come get us, because they might be setting up for the cocktail hour or setting up for the reception. So I caution couples when it's kind of like, oh yeah, my event planner can come do that. It's like, I'll email them, but I can't 100% guarantee that. So, and you can't guarantee that your dog is going to be good through the ceremony. I mean, we'll do our best.
But it might bark like crazy, which to me is like the equivalent of bringing a baby into the ceremony, and it might just start crying the whole time. It's like the equivalent.
Or they want to lunge after their owners. Yeah. When we do our planning, we do ask, what would keep them quiet. We had one couple that was like, oh, chicken tricks. I thought it was such a funny thing, but so perfect. She was like, yeah, just hold a piece of chicken in front of him, like literally for 5 minutes, and just say, sit and wait. And that's what our sitter did. Chicken tricks. So the dog was able to stay through the whole ceremony. He was not the ring bearer, but he stayed through the whole ceremony. But there's always a chance that your dog's like, no, I want to go after mommy and daddy. No, I want to go after, no, my mommies are up there. I'm going. And in that case, that's why I asked for the exit aisle seat.
Yeah. So you can just right out of there. Yep. Anything else on your fuck it bucket?
No, those are kind of the two ones that I would say. Big ones. If you had a choice of, what to do and to nix off your wedding list, then those would be the top ones. Maybe just save the pet for the pictures. Pictures, walking down the aisle is great. I love it when a bride's like, oh, my dog is going to give me away. No. I think a little knock to the parents if they're still around, but it's also, if they're not, it's a great way to incorporate your dog. So those are always super cute ways. But, after that, once your ceremony really starts and kicks off, it's kind of like, we really don't know how a dog is going to react in a quiet situation like that. Yeah, that's very true. So final question. What is your all-time favorite celebrity or royal wedding? So I'm going to flip this a little. And the one that I'm super excited for, and I am literally sitting on the edge of my seat because I cannot wait to find out, is Taylor Swift's wedding. Yeah. For one, it was such a huge Instagram, social media craze as soon as they got engaged. But also, I've been following them forever. He's got 2 dogs. I think they're Rambo and Chauncey. I hope somebody from their team is listening, because I would absolutely love to be a part of this wedding. And then her cats. Yeah. Look, I know cats don't always go with weddings. We've done a few. We did one this summer, so we do have a couple sitters on staff that do like to do the cat weddings also. But at the end of the day, cats just aren't naturally as sociable as dogs. But I still can't see her doing a wedding without them. she did the cover of Time magazine with one of her cats, and she's always posting with her cats. I just can't see this wedding going on without some sort of inclusion of the pets. So I am so excited. I cannot wait to see how like these plans lay out, where it's going to be, and everything. And the trends that come out. She is a trendsetter, and I could foresee easily whatever she does, we'll see for years to come in weddings.
What is an idea that you have, if Taylor and Travis are listening, or their people, what is an idea you have for them to incorporate their pets at their wedding?
Private vows, just with their pets. Yep.
Oh.
I think that would be like something. I've seen couples do private vows, and then sometimes we're like kind of off to the side. Sometimes their pets are incorporated in just the vows themselves, and then they go into like the ceremony portion with everybody there. But I love the private vows for one. I think it's a really nice way to express your love and your intentions to the person you're marrying. And I think having your pets there kind of signifies like they're a part of our lives and this is going to stay. So
and it kind of goes on brand with how he did the proposal. And they very smartly waited a few weeks before letting everyone know and enjoyed that time. So I like your idea, and maybe it's a future prediction. So
I hope so, especially because, I mean, he basically asked her out on his podcast. I'm hoping that somebody listens and they're like, oh, wait, we need Pawfect for you on our team.
Exactly. Veronica, how can we get more information on Pawfect for you?
We're on all the social medias. Instagram is probably our number one right now. I have a little reminder set to look at my DMs multiple times a day. So DMs is always a nice, easy way to get in touch with us. Email. We do have our phone number listed on the website. We get texts on that line. So text, email, phone call, website contact forms. We actually do text messaging consults now too this year.
Oh.
So if you're, just not really sure and you're at work type of thing, schedule a text message consult. Worst case, I say, sorry, we can't help you, or we're out of budget, like, hey, this isn't going to work. Best case, I send you a contract and a proposal.
Love it. Veronica, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing all this awesome advice. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Leah. I appreciate the opportunity.
Stay tuned, Chillas. Coming up next, we have a special segment for you from our sponsor, BriteCo. Welcome back, Chillas. We're here with Dustin Lemick, the founder of BriteCo, our sponsor today on this episode. And Dustin, it's so nice to have you back on the show and for our collaboration, because I am a fan of you and of BriteCo.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate being on the show, and it's always fun.
For those that missed the last time you were on, which I highly encourage you to go back and listen to that full episode, lots of great advice from Dustin on there. Can you just give us like a brief overview of your history with creating BriteCo?
I'm a little bit unconventional. I come from a jewelry background, actually. My family has retail jewelry stores out in Chicago. I was a third-generation jeweler. A lot of the jewelry business is a bit old school, and when I was working in our stores and running our stores, I noticed all of these issues with insurance specifically. And it was just like a horrible process. So all the larger insurance companies, like it was just kind of what people think of with insurance was the experience I was having. And so I reimagined the whole idea of what insurance should be for jewelry insurance and now wedding insurance as well, and came up with like a much more streamlined, better customer experience using technology to purchase jewelry insurance, engagement ring insurance, and, like we talked about last time, wedding insurance as well.
Yeah, and you know what? Your website is so user-friendly. I love navigating it because there's a big peeve of mine, and this is maybe very nerdy of me, is when websites are not user-friendly.
Well, thank you for that. We obsess over the customer experience. We obsess over every detail of our website and our application. It is super important today that things need to be simple, transparent, easy to use. And insurance is infamous for being the opposite of all of those things, where it's not transparent, they're hard to use, it takes days or weeks to get a policy or a quote or whatever. The hard part, though, truly, and this is the magic, is there's a lot of things that happen in the background for insurance. It's very different than like buying a pair of shoes, right? Where there's underwriting, there's all these components that go into it. Everybody gets a different, there's different pricing, there's state by state regulation. So incorporating all that in the background and then making it a super simple, easy to digest process for the customer and providing a great customer experience, like that's where the magic is. And so that's why we obsess so much over the customer experience.
And kudos to your social and marketing team, because I love following them on Instagram and they have some of the most fun videos, but it really breaks it down to you, like this horror story that happens at this wedding. And we're not trying to freak you out, but like shit does happen. Like we talked on that show last time, my best friend whose venue closed months before the wedding, like things like that happen, right? And we're about to deep dive into it with jewelry because you don't know what's going to happen with your jewelry. Talk to us about just the importance of jewelry insurance and what that means for the customer, for the person listening right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, it's a really large purchase. So like if you look at an engagement ring, and you look at sort of the demographics of who's buying an engagement ring, this is usually somebody's like, sometimes it's their biggest purchase they've ever made, or maybe the second or third largest purchase they've ever made. I mean, you're in the ballpark of homes and cars.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a very large purchase. It's also very emotional, right? Like it's signifying a really important moment in somebody's life. And so, I am in the insurance business, but I'm also not an advocate for everything needs to have insurance. Engagement rings is one of those things that I think everybody should have insurance for. And there's another part to it too. It's super, super affordable. So, you have to balance like, what's the coverage I'm getting? Like, what's the chance? I mean, these things are portable. They're being worn on fingers. They're small, relatively small.
Yeah.
It's relatively easy to get lost or potentially damaged too, which is people sometimes don't think about chips on center stones or cracks and things like that. But like the value, it's like at BriteCo, for instance, like we offer, it's 0.5% to 1.5% annually of the total value of the ring. 0.5%, like you could be paying, $25-$50 a year. And like, that's pretty reasonable and we offer really broad protection. So like loss, theft, disappearance, even if it just disappears, you don't know what happened to it, and damage. And so, I really do think it's a very worthwhile and valuable coverage to have.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, like the breakability, people don't realize, I don't think, when you're going through your day-to-day life. And again, we talked about this previously, but to reiterate, like if you are active in the gym and you're using weights, which you really shouldn't be wearing your ring for things like that, right? Or people get engaged at the beach or go on vacations and you really shouldn't be taking it in the sand. Like there's a lot of things that you can do. Talk to us about the other ways that like damage can be affected by the ring, especially with your jewelry history, but how insurance can help cover that in the long term.
Yeah. So like I said before, these are wearables. Like this is something that people wear every day. And like, you're walking around, you're at your desk, you're going to the gym, you're living your life. When you have something on your finger or anywhere, like really anywhere in your body, like rings specifically can get hit, caught in things,
It's sweater weather. It's sweater weather right now. It can get caught in your sweater or your coat.
The amount of times we've seen damage from like getting caught in door handles or door frames. That happens all the time.
I can see that, yeah.
But people think, so diamonds are extremely hard. They're the hardest things on the planet. When I say hard, that's different than, like hardness is different than toughness. Hardness is like surface area hard, and it's really hard to scratch a diamond. It's very hard to scratch. But that's different than cracking or internal fractures or things like that. Those are two different things. People don't really realize that. So diamonds get cracked all the time, and it's not easy to do, but it definitely happens. So those are things that, like, from a damage perspective, happens all the time. And so,
well, even like your prongs, the prongs for the diamond, I'm sure get bent, or
that too, all the time. Or the smaller stones, if you have like smaller melee or smaller stones in the mounting, those pop out all the time.
Yep. Happens to my mom, I swear, like every 5 years.
It happens all the time. And so like, it depends on the construction of the ring and all this other stuff. But, you know, some people wear their jewelry harder than others. But in general, like if things happen and they like when you're wearing it and you're active and whatever, it really does happen. And so that's why like reasonable coverage like just completely makes sense.
Absolutely. So with this coverage, though, we talked about diamonds, which is kind of like an obvious top of mind with engagements. But does the insurance also cover things like lab-grown diamonds, heirloom jewelry, other forms of jewelry?
Yeah. I mean, we cover a lot of lab-grown. I mean, lab-grown is very popular right now. You know, what we usually recommend, I mean, it's a little different for everybody, but like anything that's generally over $1,000 or something that like if you think to yourself like how painful would this be to go out of pocket if I lost this? If you're like, hey, I spent 10 grand on my engagement ring, that's gonna hurt a lot to come out of pocket to do that. Like those are the questions you should be asking. But we do cover heirlooms, we cover lab growns, we cover watches, we cover earrings, we cover the whole kind of gamut of fine jewelry and watches.
So think of this as like another investment for you and your partner when doing your wedding planning. And we'll talk wedding insurance on an upcoming episode. But when it comes to jewelry, this is an all-encompassing thing because you are looking out for not only the engagement rings, but your wedding rings, your wedding day jewelry. Like you mentioned, watches. A lot of people, especially men, will wear nicer watches like Rolexes, etc. I'm sure cufflinks would maybe be considered part of that, especially if there's like diamonds involved in them. And then the heirloom. So this is like when you do your homeowner's insurance and you're protecting, you know, your entertainment, your TV and stuff like that. Like this is just another form of that, of having that security for yourself.
And we're also, to that point, we're also seeing a lot of like wedding gifts. Like we're seeing watches being gifted all the time as a wedding gift, right? Like that's something you should probably, again, it's a very emotional, like, you should have it insured.
Absolutely. So, you know, I mentioned the homeowner's insurance just now. Like, how does jewelry insurance compare to like a homeowner's or car insurance?
So, in terms of like homeowners, for instance, like you could technically, and some people do, they'll add it to they'll add jewelry to their homeowners. And one thing that's really I should be clear about, because this is super confusing for people.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that they're covered automatically under their homeowner's insurance for jewelry. It's true in a very small sense. Like a very small portion of your personal articles and items are covered. But generally, it's very low limits. It's not really made for like higher end or fine jewelry. So like if you did have a jewelry loss and it was on your homeowners, what happens, there's a couple things that happen is one, usually there's a larger deductible. Like we have BriteCo, there's no deductible. Two is you're actually filing a claim against your homeowners or your renter's policy, which is you do not want to do, because what happens is like you lose your engagement ring, then you go and file a claim against your homeowner's insurance, and then they come back and be like, oh, by the way, the homeowner's insurance that you absolutely need that was already kind of expensive has just doubled. Or we've seen people get dropped. I mean, you don't want
insurance can be expensive as it is right now. Homeowners, you know.
Homeowners is expensive. Auto is expensive.
Mine just went up. Yeah.
Yeah, mine went up too. And so almost everybody's went up, by the way. And some people went up like quite a lot. So you don't really like want to intermingle them. Really, you don't.
Such a good point.
And having like the separate insurance, like it's custom made. Like our insurance is custom made for jewelry. Homeowners isn't. So that's kind of how it like fares up against homeowners. But again, in auto, I mean, it works just like any other insurance in terms of like, this is the coverage you get and this is how much you pay for the coverage. But it's just way more reasonable. It's a lot cheaper than auto or home.
And like you said, to your point, if you have to take that claim out against the homeowner's insurance for your jewelry, you do screw yourself in the long term with the homeowner's insurance.
Oh yeah,
like
big time.
You do not want to get caught with that fee.
Yeah, and the other thing too that's really, really important, that this is, again, these are things that are sort of behind the scenes that nobody really thinks about until it happens, which is you also get dinged. So like there is this central reporting agency for insurance companies that when you have a claim on your homeowners or auto or whatever, that claim gets logged by this central reporting agency, and all these insurance companies use it. So when they're pricing, or this is why your rates will go up, you will literally get dinged. So with BriteCo and every insurance company, we don't report. So it's called Clue is what this is. We don't report at all. So like if you had a loss with BriteCo, you're not going to get dinged. Like you
That's
won't
awesome.
Yeah, it will not go on your quote unquote insurance record, for lack of better term.
That's wonderful, Dustin. Like, I don't know if people even realize how big that is, because you can get dinged for anything anymore, especially with credit bureaus, right? So having this, like, you have the safety net, it's not expensive, and, it's not going to affect you in the long term if you have to utilize it. Like, that's kudos. So when we're talking about like the different, ways people have to file claims, it's such an old trope, I feel like, from watching TV shows in the 80s and early 90s. But do you still see people dropping their rings down the sink? 'Cause I feel like people drop their rings down the sink all the time back in the 80s and 90s. Like, is that still a thing?
Oh, yeah, it's still a thing. The toilet, the rings seem to find the sinks, the toilets, and kids. We've seen a lot of interesting, sometimes really funny stories of, hey, I lost my ring. This is a real story. I lost my ring. I couldn't find it. My daughter said, oh, is it this ring? And describes it. It was the blue center stone, blue ring with the white, whatever. And, the mom said, yes, it's that ring. And she's like, oh, I took it to school. And she took it to school and then gone, vanished. But the daughter, we've seen a lot of funny stuff.
Oh, I'm sure pets eating things.
Oh, pets. Oh my God. We have one, who's probably it's up there in my top 5 favorite claim stories, is the nicest couple. Their dog, literally the proverbial dog ate my homework. The dog literally ate the ring, and it was a nice, expensive ring. These people were like, they called us right away. They said, we don't know what happened. We think the dog ate it. They monitored the dog for like 24 hours and they recovered the ring. We paid, we paid to make sure that the ring was refinished and cleaned properly, like professionally, all of that stuff. But you can only imagine, right?
Damn dogs. Well, it's funny because we just were talking with Veronica from Pawfect for you, and I brought up your story from last time you were on the show about, and this goes to wedding insurance, which we'll talk about later, obviously, but the dog that during the venue tour peed all over the expensive rug. Like, I give that example quite a bit because it's for one thing, I still find it hilarious and sucks at the same time because it's so much money. But that example from you stuck with me, and I still talk about it.
It's a hysterical image. Like when I hear that, I'm like, God, that bit. But everyone was like, no. I can just I don't know, but the image that I can come up with in my brain, I can just it's pretty kind of comedic, almost like TV show-ish.
Yeah. No, running to the dog, trying to get her pee.
Don't. Yeah. Then there's a group of people sitting there watching the dog peeing.
They'll have their phone out.
Oh, no. Yeah.
All right, Dustin. Well, I could talk to you all day. I always have a great time with you. So how can we get more information on you and BriteCo Insurance?
Yeah, for me, I'm on LinkedIn. You could find me on LinkedIn for sure, just under my name, Dustin Lemick. For BriteCo or for a quote or for insurance, you could just go to our website. It's just brite.co.co.
And we have a special offer for our listeners. If you click the link in the show notes, you can get 5% off your wedding insurance. So make sure you check that out. And thanks again, Dustin and BriteCo.
Thank you so much.